Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I am Simply G and today I'm going to be showing off everything that I got for the month of April. Quarter of the year done, which is horrifying. Lots to get through. Anime, merchandise, novels, manga, all that good stuff. So rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it and I hope you guys enjoy. We have some merch. As per usual, I got a free birthday clear file. This is for Ikuya, one of the main characters of the latter series. His birthday is the 3rd of March, which is very close to my own birthday. Just a quiet fun fact there for you. I also was reminded just on Twitter by Kyoto Animation that this series is 10 years old, which just makes me feel so old. Yeah, this is a series that I really enjoy. Longtime viewers know I always get these birthday clear file artwork pieces, and so this is the most recent. I have 3 more for this set. And hopefully, fingers crossed for me, this is the last that they're doing, so I may be free from this prison of, or this cycle of purchases. Maybe one day, who knows, we'll see. On to the anime. I got a couple anime this month, the first one being a title that I was highly anticipating. It is technically a re-release. I owned the DVD version quite a while ago, and this is a series that I absolutely love. I have sort of the spin-off, I guess. Well, technically this is the spin-off of the original work, but this is a phenomenal series, finally making its way to Blu-ray, and that is, of course, Mononoke, the complete television series. This is a release from Discotek. They also released the Samurai Horror Tales anthology series on Blu-ray as well, which is where this main character, Medicine Seller, originally was shown and debuted, I guess. Hugely popular, and so this television series was launched from that original anthology series, and now we have had a film for Mononoke for the 15th anniversary that was crowdfunded. I backed that on Kickstarter, so this is not the end. More Medicine Seller is on its way, and I cannot wait. For those who don't know, this is another anthology or kind of episodic story series focusing on the Medicine Seller, who's this character here, as he travels around Japan, pre or kind of Edo period Japan, solving people's supernatural problems. It's a little bit like Mushishi. It has a much more horror and psychological aspect to it. It's a little bit more focused on yokai and that sort of thing versus Mushishi. The mushi in that are more of like a natural phenomena, similarly to a animal, plant or animal. Bacteria is actually closer to what they are, or insects. But they have very similar vibes, very similar structures. I would definitely recommend this series if you enjoyed that series. Although, as I said, there's a little bit more of a horror and kind of more of a supernatural aspect to it as well, that isn't as prominent in Mushishi, which, even though it does have this kind of otherworldly mushi influence, feels a bit more grounded in kind of reality, even when there are mushi that are a bit more fantastical. Yeah, Mononoke is phenomenal. I love this series. The visual style, you might be able to tell from the back as well. It has this kind of super flat look to it with a lot of visual interest and pattern and design. It reminds, in that way, it kind of reminds me of the anime, what is it, Gankutsu, the Count of Monte Cristo, which is a completely different setting, but has that kind of super flat look to it with overlaid patterned block coloring, I guess. It's really cool. I think it gives an extra level of eeriness to this, and unnaturalness to it. So if that's something that you are interested in, if you like, kind of unusual animation styles, definitely check this one out. The other anime that I got is also, I ordered it with Mononoke. That I did the combined order from Bright Stuff just because I don't really often buy a lot of anime from the US unless it's something that I can't get locally or a UK edition. This is an example of a series that does not have that, so I had to shell out for the very expensive Aniplex release, which I'm quite annoyed about, but it is a series that I do really enjoy, and so I don't mind too much. But this is Skate the Infinity, the full, complete first season television series. We are getting a second season, I believe. So this is one side of the box, and then we have the other side of the box, and then the complete series on Blu-ray, as well as a booklet. So if you don't know anything about Skate the Infinity, it's sort of a sports series. It's about skateboarding. Two teenage boys, the two on this packaging here, and their shared love of skateboarding and the competitive, how do I describe it? Competitive kind of like death races, skateboarding races that happen in this old abandoned like open pit mine. And it's about their friendship and also like the other weird, colorful characters who are also skateboarders. Namely, there's quite a few who are like other challengers. And then there's the villain of the piece, Adam, who kind of runs this underground skateboarding ring, and has become sort of infatuated and obsessed with this character here, Manga, after, like, once he joins in. He's recently moved to Okinawa with his mother after his father passed away. So he's grown up in Canada, and his background is in snowboarding. So he's kind of the newbie to skateboarding, but it's not like he doesn't have any idea how to, ride on a board. But yeah, once he transfers into his new school, he meets this character here, Reki, who introduces him to skateboarding, and it goes from there. It's a fun time. This is from the same director as Banana Fish, as well as the first season of Free. She's done a couple other things as well that I'm blanking on right now. Very, very much a passion project. You can definitely tell her stylings within this series, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a good time, and I look forward to season 2 whenever we get it. To manga, the first manga debut that I got for this month is one that I haven't read yet, but I probably will sit down and read after I finish recording this, and that is the second short story collection from Tusky Fujimoto. Tusky Fujimoto before Chainsaw Man, 22 to 26, that being his age. The previous collection was 17 to 21, and as like a lot of these collections, they are literally just a bunch of short stories, one-shots from this creator prior to prior to his smash hit series that are a lot more popular now, namely Chainsaw Man, but even Fire Punch. A lot of these short stories predate that series too. Really interesting. Well, going off of the previous collection of short stories, I expect it to be a very interesting mix of just weirdos and strange settings, which I adore because Fujimoto does them really well. And so I look forward to jumping into this particular collection. Have another debut from Viz. This is from their larger trim signature line, and that is a series that I was really looking forward to. It's gotten a lot of buzz on social media, and it currently has a anime airing this season. I haven't, as per usual, I haven't checked it out. I haven't started it, but this is Insomniac's After School Volume 1. By Makoto Ojiro. This is the story of, I have read this one, so I'm not completely in the dark. This is about a high school boy who has insomnia, and because he doesn't get a lot of sleep, he's seen as like very gruff and grumpy and kind of standoffish. A lot of people in his class don't like him just because, well, he's always tired, so he's always grumpy. So they've only ever really known him as this like grumpy asshole. But one day he discovers that the abandoned kind of astronomy tower in their school, observatory tower at his school, he goes there to get something for the school festival, and the tower itself has been abandoned for years, ever since the astronomy club kind of shut down, just due to lack of interest. There's also been rumors going around that, oh, it's cursed, members have killed themselves and all sorts of things. But when he goes up to that area, he runs into a girl from his class. Yeah, she's in his class, who also suffers from insomnia, and that's her kind of hideout. She goes to sleep and just, not have to deal with other people. And so she can, get a nap in without having to go to the nurse all the time. So he learns her secret. She kind of invites him in, and they become kind of, they're not really close friends, but they have an understanding because they both suffer from insomnia. As things progress, they decide, hey, why don't we just create basically, we're both suffering with insomnia. Why don't we just hang out and spend our nights together, because we're not sleeping anyway. We might as well just, do something fun. So they're slowly becoming closer friends and spending time together outside of school in a capacity that they never would have even noticed each other before. And then at the end of this particular volume, they are questioned about, because, this whole hideout thing gets found out. And in order to keep their kind of secret hidden room, their club room almost, they decide to reestablish the astronomy club, so that they have access to this room and this observatory, and also have an excuse to be up at nighttime. And so it gives them probably a more structured option rather than just wandering the streets of their city at midnight, which is not the safest thing for a pair of teens to be doing inherently. This was a really strong first volume. As I said, there's been a lot of positive, I've seen a lot of it's won a bunch of awards and stuff. As I said, I can't really speak to the anime adaptation, but I really enjoyed this first volume. I'm looking forward to the next. I think the kind of dynamic that these characters have is pretty fun. And I think there's a lot of potential here. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. So if it sounds like your thing, maybe check it out. It's funny as well. Like, it's got some real strong personalities and some really good expressions of characters. And plus, of course, there's kind of a simmering potential for romance there too. So if that's something you are interested in, maybe check it out. But yeah, another really solid debut from Viz this month. Also got a finale. I finished up a series this month, also from Viz. I don't know why that happened. Maybe just because a whole bunch of Viz stuff is coming out right now. But this is volume 12 of Dead Dead Demons Dead Destruction by Inio Asano. The longest of Asano's works so far. Probably my favorite of Asano's works. This is a story set in kind of an alternate future, current era Tokyo, wherein Japan has been invaded by aliens. And although there was a lot of like hubbub about that initially, it's 3 years after the initial invasion. And so life has kind of just moved on, adapted. Humanity has a enormous capability of adaptation. And so our main characters, who at the beginning of the story are high school girls, they're kind of in a little bit of disbelief that they're growing up in this reality where like aliens are real, but they're also just kind of mundane and nobody cares about that anymore. It's not really an issue. Obviously, other stuff happens along the way. This is a 12-volume series. A lot of questions about, the humanity and then kind of contact with the aliens and varying motivations and things, but also just kind of those elements of growing up and having to adapt and change and go with the flow. I have said this before in relation to this series. This is my favorite of Asano's works because it is nihilistic, like all of his works are, but in a way that feels very millennial / like Zoomer style of nihilism. It's not overwhelming despair, although there is like a lot of this isn't always the most upbeat, happy series, but it captures the nihilism of current young people, teens, people in their 20s, even early 30s, who are hyper aware of the issues within society, whether that be kind of social justice issues, whether it's climate crisis, whether it's alien invasion in this case. And rather than inherently being like the world is ruined and society is collapsing and all of these things, like, yes, there's the acknowledgement of that, but the way that the young people have chosen to cope, the coping mechanisms of that is much more of the social media, Reddit, even like YouTube and TikTok style of content, where it's like, hey, the world can end tomorrow. Why don't we just all eat Pop-Tarts for every meal? Who gives a shit, right? Like, we could all be dead tomorrow. YOLO. What does it matter? Which is much more the approach that you see from, the young people. The young people. It's I guess a more proactive or productive maybe style, like the meme culture of all of the crisis and societal collapse that we are constantly being bombarded with every day. These characters in this series handles a lot of the very heavy, depressing themes that are always in Inio Asano's works, and rather than say like, well, I'm depression, my depression is merely acknowledging the broken systems of society, and human connection is fake, and all of these things that you see in like Pun Pun and Downfall and A Girl on the Shore and the variety of his other works. This is more like, yeah, humanity, our social connections are broken, and the earth is going to turn into a fiery wasteland in 20 years, and, you know, aliens have literally come to take over the planet. Let's just make some memes, which isn't a healthy way to cope, but it's much more realistic, I think, to what you see currently. It is interesting to see how this series in particular has evolved over the course of the series as well. As I said, this is the final volume. It's also wherein the series was being published during COVID. So it's interesting to see kind of the impact that a real like current era crisis, a pandemic, global pandemic, had on how this series presents how people adjust to that. It's really good. I haven't read this particular volume, but I'm looking forward to finishing the series, and as mentioned, this is personally my favorite of Inio Asano's works. I would recommend it for those who are looking for like a Solanin style of story rather than Goodnight Pun Pun or Downfall or A Girl on the Shore, which are a lot more bleak in their outlook. To ongoing manga, I'll start with the large tome book because I only have one of them. But this is a series, again, that I really enjoy. The most recent volume just recently released. I literally got this 2 days ago, so I haven't actually sat down and read it yet. But nonetheless, this is Tales of the Kingdom by Asumiku Nakamura. This is a fantasy series focused on relationships, namely between brothers, but not always. It's the relationships between people. There are various storylines within this, and they all kind of weave together. They are also, especially in the early first volume, like a lot of Asumiku Nakamura's style, it's a little bit more like a fairy tale or folklore. So there's some elements that like maybe are a little bit uncomfortable. Namely, again, when we're talking about relationships between brothers and siblings, there's sort of an incestuous vibe within the first volume. Not even a vibe, it's just straight up incest. And there is that element of like fate and how twins, especially twin brothers, those fates are intertwined. And again, it's done in a way that feels very much like folklore or fairy tales. These stories about twins that naturally are kind of just trying to explain how two identical people can be born at the same time, right? Like, because identical twins, I mean, fraternal twins are a rarity in of themselves, right? Like, I'm obviously been a history of people having twins and triplets and even quadruplets, right, prior to IVF and things like that. Like, people have always naturally been able to have multiple children at one time. But identical siblings are even smaller percentage of that. And so historically, when you look at that, when you've had people born when there's like two identical children, depending on the society, like, they could be lauded or they could be completely rejected. You know, one sibling gets thrown to the forest, or the two of them are, you know, kind of upheld as this very godly and auspicious thing. It's really interesting, and because of that, again, that element of intertwined fates is very, very prominent within this particular series. Again, I cannot speak to the stories in this particular book, but I have been really enjoying it. I love Asumiko Nakamura's style. It's very moody. The use of blank space in this particular comic, she's always had a very particular style, but I think it really captures the atmosphere of this particular series really, really well. If you're a fan of Asumiko Nakamura, I would recommend this. It's always nice whenever we get a newer work from a beloved creator, and I would encourage you to pick it up if it sounds like your thing. This is a hardcover from Yen Press, and yeah, I look forward to diving into it. This is, I think, also the most recent volume in Japan. This is a series that has a very sporadic release schedule. I don't know how often chapters get released in Japan, so I think this will be the last volume we have for a while, because I don't think it's completed technically, but it's also the most up-to-date collected volume, at least, that Japan has had. On to the standard trim manga. The first being a series that I adore. I follow it digitally, not week to week. I kind of batch read it. But this is volume 3 of Dandadon by Yukinobu Tatsu. This is a action, I guess adventure, action comedy, sci-fi, supernatural, coming of age series. It's honestly a bit of everything. For those in the know, you're probably aware that Yukinobu Tatsu was formerly Tusky Fujimoto's assistant. If you like Chainsaw Man, you will love this. It honestly has very similar stylings. I find the characters, they're a group of weirdos. They are inherently more obviously likable compared to the Chainsaw Man cast. I say that with all the love in my heart. I love the Chainsaw Man cast of characters, but these kids are a little bit more well adapted. They've been socialized better than like Denji and Power have been. They've grown up in human society, so they understand social cues and things a little better than their Chainsaw Man counterparts. I adore this series. I legitimately think it's one of the best comics coming out right now, and again, it's within that same vibe of Chainsaw Man, and to a lesser extent Hell's Paradise. Dorohedoro as well really reminds me of it. It's less grimy than some of those series, but oh my gosh, it's so fun. The action is fabulous. It's really, really fluid and exciting and dynamic. The characters are really super likable. It's one of those series, and I don't say this as like inherently positive or negative. I've always made the point that like a work doesn't have to be original to be good, right? Like it's the how particular tropes and genres are expressed and executed that make something good. So, I mean, a high school romance story can be wonderfully done by following all of the tropes and expected, things and be completely predictable because you know that your couple is going to get together at the end and they'll live happily ever after and get married and have, 2.5 children and a dog and, live happily ever after. Those are all expected tropes. By having those things, it does not make it a bad story. If you don't have those things, it doesn't inherently make it a better story than those that do. And sometimes you can actually not have the story work to its full potential if you don't include a lot of those things. Comparatively, Dandadon is a series that no matter what the plot is, and the expected tropes and setup is for this series that is fairly unconventional in its plotting. I never know what is going to happen, and then as soon as you think you do know what's going to happen, it completely flips it on your head, and it's always something just completely out there, and it's amazing. It's fantastically done, which is also why I compare it to Chainsaw Man, because they're very similar in that way. Again, Dorohedoro is another good example of that, and Die Dark to a similar extent. I love this series. The artwork is also really, really good. There's a crass humor to it, which I'm not always a big fan of crass humor, especially if it's done poorly. This is not done poorly. It gives levity to the heavier emotional aspects. So in a similar way to Gintama, right? It has its poop and butt and dick jokes. But that makes it hit harder when it's being serious. I love the panel composition. And in saying that it has a whole bunch of poop jokes and dick jokes and, all of these things, all of these elements, there's a juvenile element to the humor. It's also not weird, creepy, horny. It doesn't sexualize its children characters, even though part of the time they're running around in their underwear, their clothes just disappear. Sounds like such a no guys, it's actually really deep. It doesn't feel like you're leering at the characters, which is good. It is really good. It never feels uncomfortable when there is mild nudity in this series, and it feels more natural than a good example is we have characters fighting at all sorts of different angles. They're being flung around the room and jumping and kicking and doing all these things, and sure, there might be sequences of that where our characters, both of the male and female characters, are down to their knickers. They are in their underwear, and you're oh, that's really awkward, and would be really annoying, honestly. And again, that aspect isn't sexualized. And then conversely, you can have those same fight sequences, high action, jumping around, and there's a very opportune, there's an opportunity there to insert a panty shot, which obviously is inherently fan service, is meant to be sexy. That never happens. There's no panty shots in this. There is not a gross objectification of our characters, especially our female, our teenage female characters. I don't know. Yukinobu Tatsu, despite having their characters in the nude on I don't want to say a regular basis, but on a semi, it's not unusual. There's some real respect women juice being drunk, because it doesn't feel gross and weird in the way that a lot of other shonen that I've read previously has objectified the characters. Yeah, Dandadon's fabulous. I will also say, so this is volume 3. I have volume 1. I order my books through my local comic store. I have a subscription with this one, so as soon as the new book is put on pre-order, I get like a copy marked to my account so that this store will order a copy for me. They haven't been able, there's a couple books that I'm still waiting for from that comic store, and I don't know whether it's just like because of the printing issues, the global shipping crisis, all these sorts of things. But I'm still waiting on volume 2. I'm like, oh, when I went to pick up these books, this just last week, I mentioned it, and the person who was at the till was like, I'll definitely chase it up for you. And I don't blame them. I blame freaking, I don't blame publishers and I don't blame them. I just blame the kind of situation that publishing is in right now. And it's not inherently like, I've read all of this, so it's not like I'm waiting for the next volume or I'm waiting for the second volume to be able to read this volume. It's just a pain in the butt knowing that I should have the book, but I don't have the book. Anyway, go read Dandadon. Viz manga, so much Viz manga. This is another series that I love. This is from the Shoujo B line, volume 7 of My Love Mix-Up by Arako and Wataru Hinekure. Oh my gosh, this series is so funny. It cracks me up. I talk about this series every time I get it. This is the story of a teenage boy who likes a girl who he finds out likes another boy in their class. But that other boy mistakenly gets this kind of misinterpretation and thinks that our main character, the boy, has feelings for him, and rather than say, oh, it's just been a mix-up, he doesn't want to betray this girl's crush, so he's like, oh yeah, whoops, sorry, that's me, that's weird, sorry, and in order to protect her feelings. And then, he catches feelings for this other boy. And then she finds out that this whole thing was a big mix-up anyway, because the guy that this girl likes wasn't even this other guy. It's funny. It is so sweet and heartwarming. I've said it as well again with this series. Nice to have a prominent, like, confirmed bisexual character that doesn't renege on that element, and it also doesn't treat his interest in both, like, this girl previously and this guy now as, you know, the butt of a joke. Regardless of, like, if you want a fun romantic comedy high school story, this series is legitimately the funniest thing and the most, like, expressively hilarious thing. Arako, who does the art, who you may recognize from My Love Story, she also did the art in that, gives our main character, she's not afraid to make the characters look goofy, and the way that our main character reacts to things is beyond hilarity. Oh my god. I cry laughing with this series all of the time. This particular volume focuses a lot on the side couple and the kind of issue of meeting the parents. Our major female character, she finally brings her boyfriend to meet her folks. Well, not finally, it kind of becomes part of a circumstance. And her family is a riot. It also explains so much about her. I love every single element of this series. It's so funny. It's also not super duper long. It ends with the 9th volume, so we are very close to the end. I would highly recommend this, especially if you like romantic comedies, kind of like modern era, high school rom-com stuff in the style of like Lovely Complex or My Love Story. It's a fun time. It is so good. It's so good. Yeah, check it out. Last Viz volume that we have, for general manga at least, is also another Shoujo Beat title. This is another ongoing series that I love, much longer than the previous. This is Snow White with the Red Hair, volume 24 by Sorota Akiduki. This, I really enjoy this series. It's a kind of royalty romance story about a girl who escapes her home kingdom after being summoned by the prince of her home country because of her vibrant red hair, her stunning red hair. He wants her to like join his as a consort or something, you know. I don't want to say join his harem. That's not really the right word for it. But she escapes because she has more humble dreams, and one, she has no interest in that prince. But two, she has a more, humble and noble vocation. She wants to become a herbalist or continue training to become a herbalist. While she's in the woods, between kingdoms, she runs into a small party and helps one of their members out who's been injured. He fell off a horse or down a ridge or something. It was mild injuries. Anyway, she patches him up, and she discovers that this is a different prince. This is another prince for the neighboring kingdom. And after hearing her kind of situation, he invites her to train, to study in his kingdom as a court herbalist, to allow her to, continue what she wants to do. And they hit it off pretty quickly. There's definitely like some pretty immediate interest and attraction between the two. But that was like 23 volumes ago. We are now deep into not only the establishment of their relationship, but also the politics and kind of, there's a lot of ongoing storylines within the series. It has a very, like, there's quite a few, like, oh, there's a problem, here's how we solve it, like, or here's us trying to solve it, in the way that a lot of these longer, this isn't a fantasy, I don't want to call it a fantasy, but like a lot of these longer shoujo titles have, or like shonen titles, right, like, oh, here's a problem, we need to fix it, oh, we fixed that, now there's a new problem, we fix that, right? So currently, Shirayuki, who is our Snow White, with the red hair, she is traveling the country with her personal bodyguard, Obi. So she's traveling the country in order to convince various townships and cities to and kingdoms, I guess, smaller fiefdoms, to support the usage of a particular flower species in order to, that like luminesces, in order to increase light on dangerous roads and in the dark conditions of winter in snowy areas. It's this whole thing. Which is a plant that she and a team in like a different city had developed, and one of her co-workers. So she's doing that on orders of like the current king, who's the first prince. Well, was the first prince, he's king now. And his right-hand man, who is his younger brother, who is her romantic love interest, right? So she's doing that, she's traveling around, and Zen, on the other hand, is kind of doing similar work, like he's doing other, princely duties in supporting his brother and ruling the kingdom. But currently, Shirayuki and Obi have been traveling, and they come across there's this whole thing, there's a mysterious perfume flower that causes people to kind of become a bit mesmerized, and it's used as like an attraction spell, and not spell, but like an attractive thing, and to take advantage of people. So they are trying to find the mystery of like who's doing this, what's happening, how it's happening, and to stop it. It's been very good. There's a lot of like politics with various groups within this series, which is a lot of the Zen, who's the love interest, his storylines kind of focus around. But that doesn't mean that Shiroyuki doesn't get dragged into a lot of that stuff as well, because she has a lot of exposure to kind of the upper echelon of people, especially as people are fairly aware that, you know, she is she is Prince Zen's paramour, and very likely to be his, you know, his wife at some point. It's really good. I really like this series. There's a lot of really interesting parts to it, just plot-wise, but, and I always say with this series, I really appreciate how mutually respectful and supportive the main couple is of each other's goals. Notably, this series for the last like 10 volumes, maybe not 10 volumes, but a good chunk of it has had our romantic couple separated for an extended period of time, with that knowledge of them following their own goals and trying to achieve the things that are important to them as individuals. And them in a relationship is trusting each other enough to, and caring about each other enough to want them to meet their individual goals. They don't have to be, you know, tied at the hip to feel like they're still important to each other, right? I don't know. It's a really good series. I really enjoy it. It's one of the longer series in my collection currently. Certainly not the longest, but it is one of the longer ones. And it's one that, similarly to like Yona of the Dawn, I really think that, like, if it just continues, I'd just be happy. I always like when series reach a natural conclusion, but I also don't feel like this is monotonous or I'm getting bored. I think there's a really well done balance of plot and progression. Yeah, so check it out if you haven't. We have some smaller trim size general manga, basically 7Cs stuff. The first one being a continuation of a series that I haven't picked up in a long time, but I do enjoy, and with this new season of anime, it kind of inspired me to pick it up and to continue it. So this is Skip and Loafer, Volume 5 by Misaki Takamatsu. I have 1 to 4 already, and 6 has been released. I haven't gotten a copy yet. 7 is the next one to be released in English. This is the story. Watch the anime, honestly, it's really, really good. This is a series about a country girl who moves to Tokyo for her high school debut. She's living with her aunt. And she's got a plan, right? She's very self-assured. She's very popular and diligent in her hometown. She's very smart. She got the #1 grades for this entrance exam. So she's like, I have my 5-year plan. I'm going to or my 10-year plan. By this, I'm going to be super popular, and I'm going to go to university and make all these friends because I'm so likable, and I'm going to start my own business by 20, and yada yada yada. Anyway, so because she is so confident and self-assured, she kind of gets a little bit ahead of herself and doesn't realize what she doesn't understand and realize, and that she doesn't have any experience in the city whatsoever. So first day of school, she gets lost. She's really panicking about it and freaking out. And just coincidentally, a boy from her class or in the same year as her runs into her. He is much more like laid back, doesn't have any real goals or plans. He's also very popular, but more so because he's just like cruisy, right? She's a very intense personality, whereas he's just like happy to just roll through. He's just, kind of sleepwalking through life a little bit, but that's easy, and he's never had anything challenge that. But he sees her, recognizes the uniform, and like offers to help her get to the school. They make it just in time, and she's set to give this big speech. And she's like, okay, sure, my grand plan isn't as like in line as what it should be, and yeah, okay, maybe I had some issues, but it's fine, I can still recover from this. So she makes her big speech, and that all goes well, but while she's still on stage, the nerves just take a hold of her, and she pukes in front of the entire student body, very quickly being dubbed, puke girl. Which is just like, that's just how high school is, unfortunately. This is, now you've done the one thing, this is the one thing you're gonna be remembered for. So she's kind of, well, yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely humiliating and socially catastrophic, as a 15-year-old or 14, 15-year-old. How will you recover? The answer is never, usually. But because this guy who she ran into, he actually really finds her very intriguing. He likes her a lot. He thinks that she's really interesting, has a really unique outlook on life, and, even though she did this embarrassing thing, and, she's struggling a bit, and her personality is, not exactly what he's used to, he really is attracted to someone who is so self-assured and who seems to have goals, and someone who's just very different from himself. And then there's a variety of other wonderful supporting characters. This is a really, really strong coming-of-age story. Fantastic cast. I really enjoyed the first 4 volumes that I've read, and it wasn't for lack of interest that I stopped buying it. It was more so I just had to make decisions on like what I wanted to prioritize and what I didn't, in collecting, because I was like, well, if I wait to get some of this, it means I can finish some other series first, and then I can refocus on catching up to other series. I actually do have a couple series finishing, Dead Demons, Dead Destruction being one of them, stuff like Requiem of the Rose King. There's a couple titles that are wrapping up, so I thought now's a good time to like catch up on this series, especially because there's so much buzz around it now due to the new anime. It seems to be very popular, and which is good because it's a good series, and I'm glad that it's very popular. But I knew that it would probably become a little bit harder to get these volumes, just because I know whenever there's a new anime adaptation, people want to buy the manga. So volumes become harder to find, less likely to go on sale sometimes. And you have to wait for reprints and stuff. The demand is a lot higher. So I decided to, kind of re-engage with the series, get a couple more volumes, or get the volumes that I needed, and then continue with the series. It's really, really good. Check out the anime if you haven't. And I look forward to reading this one, because I haven't actually read it yet. Just quietly. Shh. Volume for the quote-unquote general manga, mainstream manga, maybe. This is another 7 Seas release. This is volume 5 of Die Dark by Q Hayashida. This is another really wonderful, fun, interesting, quirky series from this creator. It is about like sci-fi necromancy. It's about our main character who, there's a rumor across the universe that if you kill him and have his bones, or take his bone, eat his bones, do something with his bones, you will gain immortality and like power, and you know, be the strongest being in the universe. And so our main character is kind of like, he's like 12, 14, built like a full man, as is a lot of Q Hayashida's characters. But he's kind of this undercover fugitive living under assumed names, and he, you know, lives on this particular education planet. And he's a kid. He is a teenage boy. He just so happens to have like everyone in space looking for him. His best friend is Death, Shinigami Death. He also has a talking, it has a name, but it's like Pocky something, I don't remember. But he has this talking like spacesuit that has sentience, who's kind of his guardian / best friend. And yeah, it's a fun time. I really enjoy Q Hayashida's series because as like hyper violent and gory and visceral her series are, because if you've read Dorohedoro, you kind of know what I'm talking about. There is so much violence. People getting their spines ripped out, and their muscles exploded, and just their heads blown off. Like, this is a very violent and gory series, but it's also like super heartwarming and about like friendship and connections between people and family, which is exactly what Dorohedoro is, right? There's a mundanity to the human, a good mundanity to the human interactions, despite being set in this like hellish space necromancy setting where people are trying to actively kill our teenage protagonist. But yeah, I haven't read this particular volume just because I got it 2 days ago, so I haven't had time. From what I've heard, this is the volume that, like, the character, I guess, family and friendship aspect really clicked for a lot of readers, in the same way that, like, it's evolved to what Dorohedoro was, and it took until volume 4 for Dorohedoro to, like, become really, for that same aspect to click. So I do think that that's kind of within the expectation for Q Hayashida, maybe. Which just makes me look forward to it more, because I do really enjoy this series, and I love Dorohedoro. So, yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah, as I said, we got some heavy use of blacks, a lot of violence, a lot of really weird body horror, gore, and space stuff, and necromancy stuff, and weird creatures, and even weirder, like, buildings, and this strange sci-fi world with death in it, as a major component. I'm really looking forward to reading this particular volume. I always enjoy when I can read the new works of a creator that I already enjoy, like with Q Hayashida. This was one of my more exciting, like, anticipatory licenses when Seven Seas got it a couple years ago now. And it hasn't disappointed. So if you are a fan of Dorohedoro and you're not reading this one, maybe give it a shot. It is worth your time. To the BL, and there's not a huge amount. There's some BL here. The first one being a single volume. It's from Tokyo Pop. It's a one-shot collection. This is also, funnily enough, from one of the mangaka that I've already spoken about today. This is Welcome Back Ariel by Takatsu, which is kind of the BL handle for, what's her name? Misaki Takamatsu, which is the creator of Skip and Loafer. So this is a story of two childhood friends and basically one having feelings for the other after the other boy finds out about it. There's a rejection, there's some distance that grows between them, but after time their relationship kind of slowly reconnects, and then the other boy kind of realizes his feelings. I find it really good. I think it's quite grounded, especially when you're talking about like the messy, complicated shift in relationship from friendship to love, and not wanting to ruin a friendship in face of like the risk that it would be to confess. There's also elements of for our like our main gay character, he struggles a lot with self-identity, not just with his sexuality, but namely with his kind of how much he feels he represents or resembles his abusive father. And so his kind of struggle with that and the rejection of who he is in order to distance himself from a man that he hates. It's really good. Okay, it's I really enjoyed this. It's not like super spicy or anything. There's some kissing in here, I think. Let me check. Maybe. It's not like, if you're wanting to go into this for like hardcore pornography on the page sex, this is not your series. This is not going to satisfy you in that regard. But I think there's a real heavily, or I guess delicate heaviness to this. There's some nuance here that understands the emotional weight of these characters, and it presents it in a really compelling and satisfying way, especially for a single volume. Yeah, I highly enjoyed this one. I'm always a little bit hit or miss as to whether or not to pick up one, because again, Tokyo Pop, my love-hate relationship with them. Just please, just get rid of Stu Levy and I'd be so much happier. Technically, he's still on the board, he's still the owner, which is, but he's not involved in the day-to-day for Tokyo Pop, which I feel is like maybe a little bit better. Again, I don't blame people who are still refuse to engage with Tokyo Pop, but as I've said before, if there's a title that they license and I am interested in it, I will support them and purchase it, because I am more, I don't want to say I'm a hypocrite, because I'm not, but if a title is licensed and it's one that I want to support, I will support it, because regardless of bad behavior from publishers, and let's be real, like, Tokyo Pop is the worst, but they are certainly not the only bad publisher with bad behavior, and I don't feel nearly as much guilt, engaging with 7 Seas or Viz or Dark Horse or any of the other publishers, comparatively to Tokyo Pop. So, in that way, I want to treat all releases equally. That's all to say, Tokyopop licenses a whole bunch of stuff that I really enjoy, especially within their BL, like the Love Love line. It's namely their BL. I haven't really liked a lot of their Yuri. I read some of it, but namely through library and digital editions. I also have some of their like non-Love Love titles, like Aria, the Masterpiece collections. Double is another one that I follow. But like, oh my god, you guys, there's so much like really good BL coming out from Tokyopop, and it makes me annoyed because I want everyone to read, maybe not this one. I do think this is well worth a read though, if it sounds like your thing. But oh my god. Our Not So Lonely Travel Guide is probably one of the best BL I've ever read in my entire life, and I want everyone to read it, regardless of if you're a BL fan, regardless of if you're like any kind of level of Fujo. If you've never read a BL story before in your life, but you enjoy travelogue and slice of life stories, you need to read that story. You need to read that manga. Like, I'm sorry. Just don't be homophobic. Just read the fucking manga. It's so good. Anyway, that is nothing. That's not neither here nor there. That's my championing my favorite series. But yeah, Tokyopop has a lot of really good BL. A lot that have been like major positive surprises for me as well. I tend to have a pretty good idea of like what I'll enjoy, and honestly, I've read almost all of Tokyopop's BL, and there's been very few disappointments. I've had like worse luck with Kuma, right? I don't know, it's weird. Tokyopop, how did you get such good licenses? I don't know. The eternal question. It's really good though. Check this one out. Next, we have, technically this is a debut, but it's a continuation. It's a debut continuation of the fourth part of this series. Oh my god. This is the most recent volume of I Hear the Sunspot by Yuki Fumino. This is I Hear the Sunspot 4 Seasons, Volume 1, released by One Piece Books. This is just, oh my gosh, more of my... I love this series. It initially started with two college students who, one transcribes or copies notes for the other in exchange for like free meal lunches, because the other character has hearing loss. He is hard of hearing, and so isn't able to take all of the notes that he needs because he can't hear the lecture as well as as a hearing person would. And then it's a very slow burn. Over time, their relationship develops, and now they are romantically involved, and they've been romantically involved for like quite a while. Although there's still like their relationship's still in kind of a place where it's not quite, they haven't put words to it, maybe is the right word. I don't know. But they're both in very different places. Our main character, he dropped out of college and he has been working at a company that does, I think it's like support work with hearing impaired people. They might do game design as well, something like that. I don't remember. But because after meeting this guy and becoming his friend and ultimately becoming his partner, or having feelings for him, he has like gained a lot more interest in the deaf community and the hearing loss community and wanting to learn sign language and kind of learning more about a community that he just had no exposure to at all previously. Counterpoint, our other main character, he is he's about to graduate. He is a lawyer in civil law, or civil and business law. But so now he's kind of going through the, what's the word? The interviewing process. He's trying to find a job for after he graduates, and is currently like trying to figure out which workplace would be best for him, because his focus is on workplace law. He's wanting to get a bit more hands-on experience, rather than just like practicing without understanding how a workplace works. But obviously, because he has a disability, he is trying to find the workplace that's most suited to him, that will give him the accommodations that he needs because of said disability. It's really good. This is a good volume. It's very sweet. It's like a present to myself whenever I get a new volume of this. I highly encourage you to try it, especially if you like, you know, softer, fluffy, less explicit BL. This is all of those things. Again, that's not a quality for me. That's not like a quality thing. You know, it's not inherently better than something that's a bit more raunchy, but I do really like this series. It's very beautiful. The art style is very light, and again, I really like the characters in this. Our main characters just got wonderful energy. He's very upfront and sweet. And oh my gosh, crisis in this volume. But yeah, it's super duper good. I am sad that it takes forever for new volumes to come out, but at the same time, I'm always happy when you do get a new volume. So it all balances out in the end. Check out I Hear the Sunspot with the first volume if you haven't read any of it. But this just continues to be a wonderful series that gets wonderful continuations. And I look forward to watching how these characters and their relationship develops over the course of the series. Next we have the second volume. This is a large term 7 Seas book. We have the second volume of Barbarities by Suta Suzuki. This is the story set in like an alternate European setting, about a young, I don't know, he's acting as a bodyguard now currently to a young lord who's the advisor to the child king of a neighboring country. But not everyone like the public doesn't know that he's this like younger man. He wears this like old man disguise, and then also when he's not in disguise pretends to be the nephew of the advisor. The bodyguard, he's just like this complete flirt ladies man, has lived a life of just excess and luxury, and you know, has had people throwing themselves at him his whole life. So when he meets this other guy, he's the first person to like treat him coldly and to not like immediately fall head over heels for him. And that, I guess, is his kink, because he is just absolutely besotted with this other man who really doesn't have any interest in returning his affections. Yeah, this is a highly anticipated license for me. I love the first volume. I have read this second volume. It's so good, you guys. This is more spicy, specifically with the side characters, who are actually banging. These two are still in the like very early stages of, they're not in a romance. They're kind of barely tolerating each other right now. So, you know, I really like the art style for this one as well. There's some beauty to it. It reminds me a lot of, oh my gosh, I cannot, Kumiko Suekane, who you may know from Versailles of the Dead. That's the series I'm trying to think of. The kind of facial expression, how Suzuki draws eyes, and Sukane draws eyes, and their kind of facial structure, and also this like vaguely European setting is very, very similar. This is a mystery. There's some political intrigue going on as well, but it is definitely a series that's focused on like the cat and mouse opposites attract style of romance that hasn't really started yet. We are in very early days for the main couple. As I said, there's a side couple that is, I'm not gonna say more healthy. There's a lot of issues to unpack with them. But if you're wanting your dedicated sex scenes, they're the ones that are going to provide it to you, not the two on the cover. But yeah, I really enjoyed this particular volume. This is another short series. It's only 4 volumes, so we're halfway through. Really high quality book from 7 Seas. You can't tell, but like this is quite heavy. I don't know whether it's just the paper that's being used or what, but it is a beautiful high quality release from 7 Seas. And yeah, not a super huge commitment if it sounds like your thing. Certainly not least, we have the final manga. This is the second volume of Hirano and Kagiura by Sho Harusono. This is the spin-off series, side couple of Sasaki and Miyano. This is about Hirano, who is kind of the same age as Sasaki, who in this particular story, beginning of this series, he is a year older than his roommate, who is Kagiura, and they're rooming together, as roommates tend to do. They both live at the school dorms, and through kind of their shared interactions and all of that, Kagiura starts harboring a crush on his upperclassman Hirano, which kind of evolves to a full-blown attraction pretty quickly. Hirano's like, he doesn't know inherently at all, but you do get the sense that he's starting to figure it out later on in the series. Not here, not now. This is certainly very early in their relationship. This series kind of runs concurrently with the Sasaki and Miyano manga. This couple also started as like the spin-off started in the light novel, which has also been released by Yen Press. I read that last month. It's very good. This is like an immediate follow-up to that volume. That's like their first year together, and this is set like later in their second year together as like roommates, not as a couple, as roommates and friends. Oh my gosh, like I love Sasuke and Miyano. I love those characters. I love their dynamic. I love that series. The amount of unresolved sexual tension in this series. Oh my god, there is, I need to show you because I still think about it. It's not even a proper chapter in the book. I will flip through it. It's the same artist. It's the same creator as Sasaki and Miyano. It's a very similar art style. Well, it's the same art style. Just these characters. There is, in the bonus chapter at the end of this volume, we have our Kagiura, because Hirano loses his earrings, so Kagiura gets him new ones for his birthday, right? In the novel. That's kind of early relationship days. In this bonus, he's like, oh, he's taken his earrings out. And he's like, oh, let me help you put your earrings back in. Look at that. Look at that. I'm sorry. What kind of kink is this? And then look at that reaction. I'm just like, this is so, nothing explicit is happening, but I'm just, wasn't prepared for it. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my, boys. Oh my God, get a room. They have a room. That's the problem. They have a room and they've had a room together for 2 years, and one of them is harboring a big fat freaking crush. Oh my God. Yeah, so if you are a fan of Sasaki and Mino, whether that be the anime or the manga, but you haven't tried Hirono and Kagiura yet because it might be that you're like, oh, I'm not really that interested in the side couple, or you know, they are side characters that don't get a lot of screen time in the original series, which is why they have their own dedicated spin-off series. If you're worried that it's not going to be as good or as interesting or like character dynamic as satisfying as Sasaki and Mino, check it out. Just try it. Like, honestly, do yourself the favor. It's really good. Yeah, I am a completionist, so I always try spin-offs and things of series, and BL has a lot of that. Hatorajime, My Hero, is a good example of that. Therapy Game and Therapy Restart, or Therapy Game Restart, is another example of that. Dear Mr. like Canis and the Speaker, that's an example of that. There, BL, a lot of manga have side spin-offs. BL more than I think most, because they do kind of expand on side characters. Jealousy is another good example of this. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many times the spin-off series is better than the original. I'm not gonna say that this is better than the original, because I love Sasaki and Mino, and both of these are kind of slower burns, but I don't think you're gonna be disappointed if you try this and you haven't, and you are a fan of the other series. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. Speaking of Sasaki and Mino, we're gonna get into novels, and the first one is, again, one that I haven't read yet. This is Sasaki and Mino, first years. This is, I haven't read it, but presumably when Sasaki was a first year. So it is prior to the main series starting. Just flipping through the chapter contents of this one. It's kind of a short story collection where various characters when they were younger, before the main series started. And that's kind of the expectation for these kinds of light novels. It's nice that Yen, through their Yen On branch, has been licensing and releasing more spin-off novels for some of their more popular titles. And so it's been really nice that we have been getting more BL novels in all sorts of capacities, and especially for existing beloved franchises like this one. As I said, haven't read this one. I read the Hirono and Kagiura one last month, during April, in fact, because I had it, and they're not super long. They're very, very short novels. But so I will get to this one. I just haven't had it that long, and it's not like my number one priority right now. I have other stuff to read. Another, I guess, this isn't technically BL, but it's very BL adjacent. This is volume 3 of The Case Files of Jeweler Richard by Nanako Sujimura, with illustrations by Utako Yukihiro. This is, like I've said with the previous volumes, the story of a Japanese university student who rescues a beautiful foreign man one day, who is called Richard. who's not only just like the most gorgeous, beautiful man that the student has ever seen, but just, oh my god, he is the complete package. He's a polyglot. He's so intelligent and well read and informed and just, oh, he knows everything. But most notably, he is a jeweler, so he appraises jewelry and gemstones most specifically. So he's opening a jewelry atelier, a jeweler store in Ginza, and offers kind of like a part-time position to the student, not only as a way to thank him for helping him out with the situation that he was in, but also as a way because he just needs a part-time student, and also he's helping the student because he has a pretty demanding, horrible part-time job that he was otherwise at. So he's like, sure, I will help you, Richard. Thank you for the opportunity. And also initially he goes to Richard with a beautiful jewel that he had inherited from his grandmother, and finds out, with Richard's help, the backstory behind it, which gives him a lot of like ease of mind, peace of heart, I guess. Peace of mind, ease of heart, whatever, I don't know. Each volume is very episodic. Each chapter is dedicated to a different like mystery around a different gemstone. They all have meanings and they all have histories. And whilst that is happening, the most non-overt, slow burn, not explicitly queer love story is happening on that page, and you would have to be blind to not see it. But unfortunately, Seiji, our main character, is not the most emotionally intelligent young man. Let's just put it that way. Volume 4, though, I know the contents of Volume 4. It is the gayest, not BL gay book that there is. But yeah, I really enjoy Jeweler Richard. I haven't read this volume in particular, but it's always a good time. This was a surprise license, maybe. It's a series that I enjoyed via the anime initially. When the manga got licensed, I was, happy, but I personally wasn't like going to pick up the manga. And I'm glad that I waited, because eventually they did get the light novel as well, because longtime viewers know that regarding adaptations, depending on like what it is and how it's delivered and whatever else, I prefer the original version of something. So normally, like for a light novel, I will get the light novel version, even if there's a manga adaptation. And then depending on, again, if I've seen it, if I like it, I will get the anime adaptation. And if I super duper like it, then maybe I get the manga adaptation, especially if like manga and light novel releases from those franchises aren't. I don't have a problem with like the Sasuke Miyano light novel, because that's not like, it's not a one-to-one adaptation, it's spin-off stuff. Whereas Jeweler Richard, this and the manga are like one-to-one adaptations. I don't really find the need or have the need to have both, so I made the executive decision, and I'm very happy with the novels, because again, I prefer the original work, especially when it comes to novels versus manga. Anyway, yeah, really happy to have this one, and I am going to hopefully read it sooner rather than later. Next, we have a danme that I haven't read yet. It's still in its plastic wrapping. I got it early in the month, but I've been focusing on other reading, so I will get to it hopefully soon. This is The Missing Piece by and apologies for my Chinese pronunciation. Kun Yi Wei Lo. Lo. I know nothing about this. This is a Violacti release. I ordered it when pre-orders went out a bajillion years ago. I'm looking forward to it. I also have all of the special edition or limited edition extras with it. So it has this holographic card, which is nice. I don't know what it's meant to be for. Hands holding, touching, Red String of Fate. And then we have a postcard with presumably our main characters. There's a written message in English on the back. And then we have 2 boarding passes, which I presume are flights that our main characters take in the series, or in the novel, I should say. This is the this is the complete novel series. Not super duper long, although I say that. Violacti has... I only own one other title from them. I've also got one other title on order from them. So all of their English releases that they've put together so far, I have in some capacity, that are in print. I don't follow the digital releases. Well, maybe that's not quite true, because I don't have plans on getting Limerus or whatever that series is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is neither here nor there. I'm looking forward to this one. I, as I said, don't know anything about it, but it's quite highly regarded. It's a modern danmei, or like current day danmei. So no cultivation in this one that I'm aware of, at least. So it'll be a little bit of a different, different style of story than what I've previously read with MXTX books and some of the other danmei that I've read in the past. So yeah, I look forward to getting to it at some point. At some point. And it's just the one volume means it's not a super duper big commitment. Hopefully, at least. I don't think it'll be. That is all of the manga, novels, and everything else. What's the other stuff that I got? Anime, that's the word that I got for April. Lots that I talked about. Lots to enjoy. Some new debuts. Some finished series, which is always exciting. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions on anything that I spoke about today. Have you read some of this stuff, especially the stuff that I haven't read yet? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Disagree? I love reading your comments. So if you feel so inclined, please do leave me one. I do try to respond to all of them. In addition, you can follow me on social medias, Twitter at that's GEE _reads for now. And that's kind of the only social media that I have. Once Twitter dies, I die with it. We'll see what comes out of the ashes of the whole social media situation. Additionally, you can listen to me and my very good friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures. We co-host a manga podcast that has a new episode every single month. This month was To Terra, the 70s shonen sci-fi manga. Not super duper long, but has had a couple of different adaptations and has had an English release, both in print and now digitally on Manga Planet. So you can listen to me and more manga opinions on there. We are available on all of the major podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, I don't know, other ones. So you can follow that there, or you can also subscribe to the channel. I do post those podcasts here, as well as various other manga related videos, namely these monthly pickup videos, but also reviews and recommendation videos. So if you are new to the channel and that sounds like something you're interested in and you've made it this far, subscribe if you liked it. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye till then.